Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. I've gone back to my microphone. Hopefully tonight we're not going to encounter any technical problems. I have updated the program. I've disconnected the microphone, re-plugged it in, and tonight I am going to start class without any music in the background and seeing if that'll help at all. So welcome. Put your name on the comment section here at YouTube, and also remember to sign in. We're going to wait for most people to get logged on before we start tonight's class. I'm going to take a look. I don't think I have any openings for tomorrow, but Friday is pretty wide open. Saturday is pretty open, mid morning, late afternoon, all day Monday, Tuesday. So welcome. What I'd like you to do tonight before we get going, I'm going to try something a little bit different with this class. Sam. Okay, I want you. Okay, Sam Rubin, I want you to text me. Okay, you've got to text me your name. We got to be communicating by phone. Got to start scheduling you drive. And there's some more information I've got to get out to you because I haven't seen any homework. I've got to talk about how to get you hooked up to Facebook and to get some of these worksheets. So it's important that you text me. I'm not going to put my number up there on YouTube in the comments because I gave you that textbook and the manual and an outline, and on course outline. My phone number was there. Now, what I need you to do tonight, I think we're going to start off this way. I want you to text me your email. All right? Okay, I got your number. Thanks, Sam. And I'll be able to get back to you a little bit later. So, text me your email. What I'm going to do with emails, I've been doing some research. I'm going to open up I have an Apple phone, as you can have an Apple computer. I'm an Apple guy. I am going to make my calendar available to all of you, which means that I'm going to send you a link that you can take a look at what I have for openings. And then you text me when you think you should be able to be free to drive. That way we can start booking things out, and I can fill my calendar, and you can check it any time you want. So I'm going to try to do the calendar link tonight. So make sure you send me, okay, say your email, okay, that you want the calendar sent to, and then you'll be able to access. The mic is echoing. The audio is glitchy. All right. All right. I'll go back to the built-in microphone. How's the sound now? I'm gone to the built-in microphone for the computer. All right, so I'm going to wait just a few minutes. It's like it's duplicating. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to just talk just a little bit longer, and then, yeah, I know, it's very bad. So I've muted the microphone, and I'm using the computer microphone. It must be something that's here. I'm going to keep my headphones in. That way I can hear. Okay, it says it's much better. Okay, better. Okay, awesome. All right, I'm going to keep the built-in microphone, and I won't use. This is my Yeti. So, well, this is my last remote course that I'm teaching, so it just goes to show when you buy technology, it does kind of, fail you at times. So maybe it's just a failed microphone. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, but last night, it kind of took me off my game talking about seatbelts and having the problem with the microphone, and I didn't have headphones, so I couldn't hear myself, so I was like screaming to the computer screen. Um, but it was a night that we had a lot of videos about seatbelts, airbags, and helmets, so that helped me a little bit. Unfortunately for tonight, it is going to be more PowerPoint and note taking. So you're going to have to take a lot of notes tonight because we've got a lot of ground to cover. We have 3 topics that we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking um, about balance of a vehicle and how that comes into play with turning and stopping and your position on the roadway. We're going to be talking about communication with other drivers on the road. And we're going to be talking about turning, passing, lane changes, and things like that, which is more geared towards the state manual. And there's a topic that I'm sure you've never heard about. So there are a few videos tonight that we're going to see that I kind of like. I kind of like the subject on vision. So we'll be doing a little bit of that. So the first thing we're going to get into is we're going to talk about vehicle movement and placement of your vehicle out on the roadway. Understanding the science and movement of a vehicle placement will create a safer drive for everyone. The reason why a lot of people leave roadway is not just because of speed. It's because the car isn't built to handle by suspension the way the road is built with the higher speeds of keeping you in your lane and safe. Oh, it's echoing again? Wow. I have no idea why oh, okay, I see it. Gotcha. Okay. Now I think it's going to be much better. What happened is the Yeti, when I went, okay, I got it. I took care of it. It's fine. I see what happens when I click from my live shot of me and I go into a movie or into my PowerPoint, the microphone switches over. So I've just deleted the microphone, and hopefully tonight we won't have any more issues. There are 3 terms that I want you to write down and be familiar with. Most of you that have driven with me already know pitch, roll, and yaw. You basically know about pitch. I say that so often when we drive that when we come to a stop line, in order to bring the car to a complete stop, there has to be some movement backwards of the vehicle, and we call that pitch. So the weight shifts from a forward position to a back position. Now, when you accelerate, we can have pitch also. So if you pop a clutch or hit the accelerator really hard, the car, the back end is going to go down, the front end is going to go up, and you're going to get more pulling power from the back tires, or I guess in the front tires if it's a front wheel drive. But there's going to be a shift of weight. That's the definition of pitch. Roll is when we find the car leaning to one side. The best example that I can give with roll is if you've ever taken an off ramp on a highway and you've taken it too quickly, the car is going to lean to one side. And the definition for yaw is when the back tire, whether it be right or left, basically lifts up and the opposite front tire digs down into the pavement to make a turn. Yaw, the best way to think about yaw is that whenever in the wintertime the back end of your vehicle is spinning out, it kind of swings out to the right or swings out to the left. That is the beginning of yaw. And there's going to be a picture of that in a moment. So under your notes with pitch, what I want you to write down, this is how you're going to experience pitch. One is inexperience with pedals, whether it be the brake or the accelerator. So hitting the brake pedal a lot harder than it needs to be hit will cause a car to pitch forward too severe. Same thing with hitting the accelerator. You hit it a little bit too hard, the car is going to kick back a little bit, and it's the sign that you haven't learned the pedal. Sometimes we find pitch when people have attitude, when there's aggression or rage in a vehicle, when you no longer think about being calm and being smooth with your driving. It's the quick stops, quick acceleration. And the last point that I want to make here is that pitch isn't always a sign of inexperience. Sometimes it's not being familiar with a car. Now, in your notes, what I want you to write down and for you to understand is that when you go for your driver's test, and I think for the most part, the first time you drive with me, I think you probably experience this, is that you're probably a little bit nervous. I'm the person kind of between you and getting your license. You're here in this driver's ed program in order to get paperwork, in order to get a driver's license. So you are trying to drive well enough to impress me because you know that I can hold back on signing over your paperwork. I can hold back on your driving, tell you that you got to drive more with your parents. So I think for the most part, you may drive differently with me than you do with your parents. Your parents may allow you to do some liberties like stopping beyond stop lines, going faster than you probably should, um, rolling through stop signs, things like that. When you go for your driver's test, they're going to key in on the movement of your vehicle, because the moment you get in the car and you start driving away from the parking spot, they're starting to form an opinion of you as a driver. So anything that you do too adversely, braking too hard, accelerating too hard, is going to make them think inexperience. Or they're going to maybe think he's extremely nervous. So they've got to kind of, weigh out one way or the other. Which way is it going? Is the person nervous, or are they just not a very good driver with inexperience? So over on the left, there's a picture of someone who's accelerating. And notice some of the terminology: light accelerating, progressive accelerating, control braking, threshold braking, trail braking. So we all had that last week. So this is all from that New Hampshire curriculum that they want you to know for your driver's test. So some of these terminologies may come up on a test. Now, the third definition that I want you to be familiar with is roll. And the three things under roll that I want you to write down in your notes is it really is speed related. Anybody that's going too fast around a corner, you can take a look at the picture to the left. That red vehicle, you can just tell it's leaning way to the right. It's lifting, leaning to the right, lifting up on the left. It is going to push that vehicle to the outside of that particular turn. All right. Go slow. Go slow takes care of roll. If you want to reduce roll, now be careful. Braking will slow you down, but braking sometimes may, depending on what you have for traction, may put the car into a skid or a slide and push you off to the side of the road. Now, road design, okay, on the other hand, could affect roll, the way that the road is built. Now, there are two terms that I want you to be familiar with road design, and I will test you on this. One of them is called crowned roadway. A crowned roadway is where it is higher in the middle, where the double yellow line is, and it slopes to the right towards the white edge line. Now, the state of New Hampshire, some of the state troopers and the state examiners call the white edge line, I call it the white edge line. They call it the fog line. So in your notes, put down the fog line and the white edge line are one and the same. Because when you're driving in bad weather, you should be focusing on the white line rather than focusing in the middle of your lane or towards the yellow line. The other road term that I want you to be familiar with is banked. And a banked roadway is like a raceway. If you've ever watched NASCAR, any type of high-speed racing, you know that the road dips to the left, because in racing you're always making a left-hand turn. So it's higher on the right, lower on the left in order for you to make a fast turn. So when roadways, especially the roadways that I take you on, like 155 going from Lee to Durham to Dover, that the speed limit there is 40 and 50 miles per hour. The roadway had to be built a certain way in order for us to be able to do that. So crowned roadway, higher in the top, slopes to the right, banked roadway, higher on one side, lower on the other. And it can be banked right to left or left to right, depending on which way it wants to take you. And the other thing you could put in your notes, another reason why roads are built this way is it takes water away from the center of the road. If you've ever taken a look at a road that has issues like, potholes or where it's breaking away, you'll always notice you're more apt to find it over near the white edge line than you are the yellow line, just because of the way that the road slopes. The last thing that, this is another thing on roll. We've already talked about all this stuff to the left here, so we just kind of mentioned that. I'm seeing if there's anything that I missed. No, it talks a little bit about yaw. So roll and yaw are basically somewhat connected. There has to be a little bit of roll before yaw takes place. If you were to stick a pole right down the middle of your vehicle, right between the four tires, okay, you put a big, huge pole, right? What happens is the back end flies out in one direction. Let's say it flies out to the right. Your front end is going to go to the left. So it basically is a spinning movement. And the reason why it spins, if you take a look at the little blue arrow right here, is that the front end dips down and grabs the roadway. The back right side, okay, lifts up, and it spins you around the center axis, or where that pole is, the middle portion of your vehicle. So anytime that you're leaving the roadway with your back end, there has to probably be some type of yaw involved. So yaw is related to speed, road design, and weather. I want you to diagram the roadway here on the left. So what is happening to your vehicle is based upon science, and it's also based upon the equipment that you have. I mean, not all cars are created equal, meaning the weight, the tire size, the suspension, the shocks. So you can't think that because you drive your mom's car a certain way on back roads, that when you get your dad's car, it's going to react the same way. Total different vehicle. And one's probably going to react a little bit better than the other. So in the diagram, there are three colors. And you don't have to, I'm sure you don't have any color pencils or anything with you. But I want you to put down these three arrows. The car is making a left-hand turn, and there's a red arrow that says inertia. So rather than inertia, because most people go, I have no idea what that means. So what I want you to write down is science. Okay, rather than inertia, put science. It's really physics. So when you're speeding straight ahead into a turn, you're going to go straight ahead until you start turning the wheel. Once you start turning the wheel, the car is going to move in the direction that the car is being turned to. But science is still going to try to push you straight ahead. So you're trying to put some type of input to make the car go left. You see the roadway, you see the double yellow line, you see the white edge line. The green arrow is where you want to go. And I think that you should key in on that blue arrow, because between the red and the green is the blue, and that's where your car is really going to go. Most people don't realize that if you're going too fast into a turn, science is going to push you away from where you want to go. You have to overcome, you've got to bring the speed down to an adequate speed, safe speed, and that's why we've taken engineers to give us speed limits, to a speed where it's going to be safe to take you all the way through. Now, where it says apex, I want you to change that word, and I want you to write middle. That is the middle of the turn. So right before that word apex, where it goes to the car, I want you to just kind of make some type of a line, and then I want you to put the word brake. I will tell you this will definitely change the way you drive with your parents if you write this down and start to implement this with your driving. If you brake all the way to the middle part of your turn, and now we're talking about where you're going faster than you should for a turn. Sometimes, like in town where it's speed limit of 20, 25, you don't need to brake into some of these turns because the speed is already slow enough. But if you're going 40, 50, and it looks like it's going to be somewhat of a faster turn, by implementing a little bit of brake to that middle portion of the turn will keep your position and the control of your vehicle in check. If you're coming in too fast or if you brake late, it will always push you over that white edge line where that blue line is. It's going to be a bad turn. So think about this. When you go for your driving test, if you don't stay between the lines, what's going through the mind of the person that's testing you, the examiner, is why can't they keep their car between the yellow line and the white line? It's because you don't know the speed to take the turn. Or you like to go fast, which isn't really good for a driver's test. You got to drive like you're a limo driver. You're driving around your grandparents. Think about that. If you want to pass your driving test, drive like you're driving your grandparents to, I don't know, out to dinner. And your grandmother is a very picky person to have in the car. She picks apart everything. And you just don't want to hear her say that you're going too fast or making a bad turn. So you said, I'm going to change the way I drive so she doesn't critique what I'm doing. So I am going to go slow because I don't want to anger my grandmother because we're going out to eat. Drive, drive, drive slow. I think too many people, and there are going to be times when you're on straightaways, yeah, you're going to go the speed limit or a little bit above on a test. That's not a big deal. I'm talking about turns right now. So go slow for your turns. The other thing that you probably don't realize what's happening to your vehicle, if you take a look at the left part of that picture, notice where there is a tire and it's got a red portion that says rim. That's the metal part where your tire is being, um, where the adhesion of your tire is sticking to the rim. That when you start to flex, what we call flex your tire, okay, so you're putting too much pressure because you're going too fast, you're ripping away the seal that is keeping your tire on the rim and air is leaking from your tire. This is why you lose air out of your tire. It may not be a nail, it may not be a bulge or something. It's flexing on turns too much. The sidewall of your tire is starting to get broken down and causing problems for air to leak out. The next part of these terms here, I'm not a big fan of, but because it's the state curriculum, I want to kind of go over. I think sometimes this is a little bit simplistic. I get what they're saying, and I know why they want you to understand this, but I think we have our own way of doing things, and for the most part, I haven't talked to anybody who I've driven with in this class and really talked about target driving. For someone that's really never driven before and they can't keep their car between the yellow line and the white line, and they go, I just, I'm always over the yellow line, I'm always over the white line. I don't know why I can't stay in my lane. Well, it's easy to kind of find something way up ahead in your driving. Find, in this case, in the picture, the house, and that's your target. You're basically driving towards the middle part of your path. So in your notes, just write target driving or your target path. Let's do the next slide. Your target path is taking you to where you're looking. So a lot of times people have a tendency to move the wheel when they start looking left or right. So they're saying if you're looking straight ahead, think of your steering wheel like a face of a clock. And at the top, and most of you have done this with me when we did backing. I do like grabbing with one hand in reverse when we do any type of backing, especially with our side mirrors, as you know. It helps us find the edge a little bit easier and to guide our car. But target path is basically trying to keep, notice in the bottom picture, that black X at 12 o'clock is going towards the circle. So if you really have issues with steering and you think you're too close to the left or to the right, I would say look straight ahead, find where you want to go, and line up the center of your steering wheel where you want to go. And that's going to take you where you want. And that's the best way to explain that. Now, here's a case where, and I'm not quite sure if they're taking the picture right behind the driver or if it's somebody with a camera in the back seat taking a picture, but they say if you're aiming 12 o'clock to your target, you should be going towards it. But in this case, the black mark on the steering wheel is heading towards the mailbox. So if we don't implement any type of steering right now, we are going to go over the yellow line. And it doesn't take long if you're not looking at the road or looking to where you want to go to lose your position. For the most part, everybody's doing pretty good with lane position. Some of you still have to tighten it up a little bit. I'm going to give you at least 2 or 3 times out with me until I really start bearing down on your speed and your position coming through town and some of the back roads that we're on, because I want you to get used to the car and get used to me. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with the way people have been driving in their position and where they're going. So here's a car that's back on target, so we know that everything is fine. So why tracking? Why looking at the target? It basically helps you start thinking about vision. And tonight really is keying on vision, because the whole basis of driving is being able to see where you want to go and seeing what you know is going to happen up ahead to basically help you determine of when you're going to be doing things like braking, moving to the right, starting turning into a roadway. But if you don't see things well enough or see things early enough, then you're going to be doing everything late. And when you do things late, there's more of a chance that you're going to be a little bit off in your driving. So be careful when making a lane change. And for some of you, it's hard to believe that some of you already have clocked in 3 hours of driving. So this is for most of you to pick it up. You know, start signing up for more drive times, because some of your classmates here are definitely way ahead with 3 hours, which is pretty good. Be careful when making a lane change, because where you look is where you're going to go. So right now, even though we're in this left lane and we want to be centered in this lane, we want to make a right at that traffic light. So if we focus our attention to the back end of that pickup truck where his license plate is, that is our focus of where we want to be next. So this is where you're going to be checking your mirrors, using your directional, looking over your shoulder, and now a slight turn of the wheel to get us sliding over into the right lane. Okay, we don't want to come over too quick. We don't want any sway to our vehicle. So the vast majority of crashes with vehicles is because they don't see well or they don't stay in their lane. Now they give you 2 what we call acronyms here, LOSPOT. So I do want you to write this down. LOS stands for line of sight. POT stands for path of travel. All right, line of sight, path of travel, and we're going to break this down in a moment. I know the state comes up with these fancy terms, but I kind of like to simplify things, so we're going to do that. Most crashes happen because we weren't aware of a change in what was happening up ahead, and we don't have enough time or an area to deal with it in a timely manner. So another reason why I always try to say you should really stay close to the speed limit, because when you go faster, your decisions have to be made faster and there's less room for error. I'd rather have more room for error rather than less. So we talked about what each one of these terms means: line of sight, path of travel, blockage, are all negatives. Okay, negative aspects to driving. We want to basically control these and to have no issues. So as I said, let's break down what does this mean. What does line of sight actually mean? Now, you don't have to write down every single thing that's written here, but I do want you to at least write down environment, because depending on where you drive, and you're not gonna drive your entire life in Durham, or you're not gonna drive your entire life in New Hampshire or New England. When you start moving around the country, weather, buildings, um, just the way that everything is designed with roadways is going to be slightly different, and you're going to have to adapt to that. So when we talk about weather conditions, we're talking about rain, snow, sleet, things not only becoming traction problem, but in this case, vision. Anything that adheres to your windows will distort or change what you see. It's been proven that when you don't have a clear windshield, front, back, or sides, your decision making is slowed down. You don't make decisions as quickly or as well as when it's nice and dry and clean windshield and it's fine outside. Most of you know that Durham has many places, hills and intersections with buildings and bridges and fences, bushes and signs and billboards, everything. We don't have billboards, but we have trees. Anything that blocks what you see left or right or straight ahead is creating a problem for you as a driver. Also included in this group of problems would be vehicles. And I think most of you that have pulled up side by side with another vehicle basically know any vehicle that is higher than you is preventing you from looking to the left or to the right. So then you're finding yourself inching out, inching out, inching out until you can see better. Path of travel, meaning where we're going to have problems with positioning of our car. Okay, we've got lights, signs, intersections, narrow lanes, roads that are rough or bumpy. We've already talked about rain, ice, snow, water, and anything that's coming between your tires and the roadway will create issues for you as a driver. This is kind of what you should always be back from somebody. I do want you to write this down. Following 4 seconds, we're going to have this again on a PowerPoint slide later tonight, but please write down you should be back 4 seconds. 4 seconds is going to give you ample time to handle any situation that is coming towards you, or if the car is in front of you and you're behind it 4 seconds, they can do anything like brake real hard or steer. You still should be able to handle what they're going around. Okay, now here's another, like I said, tonight's really heavy on notes. So with zone locations, zone control is really big in driver's ed because what we find is most people are so tuned in to just what's happening in front of their vehicle that they're missing the other 5 sections around their car. And if you were to split your car in half, and notice where the split is, it's right at the top of your windshield. And that is basically right where the back of your seat is. I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully the mic won't come back on. All right. So I'm going to put my hands out like this. So anything that's to the front of you, okay, is what we call peripheral vision. So like right now, if I move my hands out, I'm going to go to if I can get in the screen here. So when I move my hands off to my shoulders and I move my fingers right now, I can still see my fingers moving. So anything that's from my shoulders forward is peripheral vision, and I can see okay. All right, I can see everything from here to my right shoulder to my left shoulder. Everything is fine. I can't see anything behind me. So your side mirror to the left, side mirror to the right will take care of those 2 quadrants, and then your rear view mirror is taking care of what's behind your vehicle. So in your notes, I want you to write down that when you're on your driving test, every time that you make a turn, put your signal on, you should use your rear view mirror. You complete a turn, check your rear view mirror. Anytime that you have lanes beside you, or you're going by bicyclists or pedestrians, always check your side mirror. Check your side mirror to see where they are once you go past them. You cannot look in your mirrors too much. Well, people say, well, how often? In heavy traffic, like in downtown Dover, probably every 5 to 10 seconds. When you're in the back roads of Lee, I don't know, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Not as frequent, because nothing's going to change. You may not encounter another road for a while. If there's nobody behind you and you don't look in your rearview mirror, I doubt someone's going to be rejoining you. Okay, so you don't have to do it as often. But in the city, things change quite quickly. So keep your eyes moving on your driver's test. Do not keep them fixed. So make sure that you've got this diagram in your notes. Anytime a car enters one of those quadrants, you should start thinking about, do I need to change my speed, meaning speed up or slow down, or do I need to move to the right or to the left? Now, this is one of my favorite slides, and I know some of you, I think some of you are actually watching this on your phone. But I want you to take a moment and try to count how many people can you see outside of their vehicle. So we're not talking about the person that's in the van coming towards us. But if a person is outside walking, I want you to look real closely and I want you to count. All right? So I want you to count and I want you to put the number in the YouTube section so everybody can see who is guessing what. So I'm going to give you a moment and I'm going to get a drink here for a moment because I'm getting a little bit raspy. I have allergies. Grass is terrible right now. I had the window open. So write down how many people you see on the outside. We're starting to get some people. Luke, I thought that you would probably catch it. Luke is correct. Amelia is correct. Grace is correct. Sophie is correct. Pretty good with 6. I'm pretty impressed. The numbers, the numbers are great. Miles, you're correct. There are 7. There are 7 people. And the one that most people don't see is the person opening the door to the truck. Yeah, this class is doing really good. And when you're driving, it's too easy to look at your roadway because right now our lane is open all the way up to the crosswalk where we have a few people walking across the street way up at the top. But notice the pedestrians that are off to the right and to the left. Those are a concern to us because what do you think that this van that's approaching us is going to do as he gets closer to the red vehicle on his side of the road? He's going to see the person walking towards the door of the truck. He sees the person with the door open. There's a guy right inside that open white door of the truck grabbing the ladder. So when that van gets a little bit closer, another 30, 40 feet, he's going to be going in towards the yellow line or into your lane. That's a real issue for you because you can't go over the white edge line too far because you've got a red parked car coming up. So this is where you start to realize that your lane position is extremely important, that you have to anticipate what other people are going to do before they do it. Because for the most experienced drivers, this would not cause any stress because you have plenty of time and position to deal with a problem. A new driver, a driver that hasn't driven very much, is only focusing on the oncoming vehicle. And when he sees the vehicle going towards the yellow line or maybe over the yellow line, they freak out. They go, oh my goodness, we're going to get hit. And no, you're not going to get hit. He's just trying to give room to those two pedestrians so that he wants us to go to the white line or stop and let him deal with those two people. Now, I want you to diagram on a piece of paper these 5 vehicles. And we're going to go from the far left and we're going to move to the right. Okay? So why would these vehicles be in these positions? These are the 5 positions that we're going to use in driver's ed. The one to the furthest left. Now, the state uses lane position 1, lane position 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not a big fan of that. I'll be honest. Okay. I don't think you're going to remember lane position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that you will always remember these 5 terms. So this is what I want you to write down. The car to the far left is in the center of his lane. All right, so write that down. Maybe even put it inside the car. Draw a box. So make sure you've got equal space between the dotted yellow and the white line. And just put down he is in the center of his lane. Now, the car just to the closest to the dotted yellow line, we're going to call he is left of center. And the car to the white line in front of the center car is going to be right of center. Now, why would these cars go from the center position to the left of center or right of center? Well, left of center could be a pothole, could be a bicyclist, could be a garbage truck. So there are many reasons why you would go left of center. Now, here's a question. Why would you go right of center? You wouldn't want to get closer to parked cars. You wouldn't want to go closer to a bicyclist. So why would you go to the white line? How about making a right turn? Same thing with left of center. When you make a left turn, you should be closer to the dotted yellow than you are the center position or the right of center. So anytime you're making a turn, you're going to go in the appropriate position, right of center or left of center. Maybe you're going right of center because there's a large tractor trailer coming and it says wide load. So you don't want to go over the white line. You just want to get close to it. Now, the 2 cars left are going to be far left and far right. These are used in extreme situations. So write that down. Far left and far right are used in extreme situations. This could be because there's a crash and you're going to have to go around it. It could be someone that's distracted and coming in your lane, so you're going to go far right to get away from where they're going. Far left could be maybe a dump truck is taking up the whole lane rather than being way over to the side. He's taking up too much position in the lane, and just left of center isn't doing it, so now you've got to go far left. So these are 5 positions that you're going to need to know, and I'm basically going to ask you to use these positions when you drive. All right, now the next thing that I want to talk about, this was in your reading in responsible driving. And by the way, the homework last night with the, I haven't been able to listen to the radio ads because I got home a little bit late to have something to eat and then get the PowerPoint up and running. So I haven't listened to the radio ads, but I did click in during the day when I had a chance to look at the posters, and top notch. I mean, I've gotten probably some of the best posters I've had in over a year. So I'm really impressed with the posters that people have done for seatbelt usage. So if you don't have that in, please remember to get that in. I also told you that you had chapter 6 and 7 to read in responsible driving and do the questions. 6 deals with basic maneuvers, and when you start driving with me, we're going to go over a lot of these things. So I wanted to kind of prime you and get you ready for what it's going to be like in the driver's ed car if you haven't driven already. Some of the maneuvers that we're going to do. But chapter 7 is on searching and giving meaning to what's out there on the roadway. And as we said earlier, with line of sight, vision is really important. So we're going to talk about 5 different aspects of vision. And I think this is kind of a fun topic. I really do like this topic because it gives you an understanding that nobody's perfect. And vision can fool you and make you think that driving up ahead is going to be one way. And when you get there, you're finding out, well, it's not quite what I thought. I didn't quite pick up the information that I should. The poster is what we had for homework last night. Okay, I gave it to you, so you had to stay for the whole class. So Kiana, you got to go back to last night's video and look at the last portion of the class. Okay, you got to stay with me. All right, let's take a look at some aspects to vision. Now, do not write everything down. I do want you to write down the top heading, so please write down visual acuity. And under visual acuity, what I want you to write down is that you have the ability, while you're driving, to see things sharp and clear. Okay, so visual acuity is in your driving, your ability to see things sharp and clear. Now, the bottom paragraph talks about what is it like to have eyes that are not adequate, which are a little bit less than perfect. So when you're going 30 miles per hour and you have good visual acuity, 20/20, and by the way, you need to read at least 20/30 on your driver's test in one eye, and you need to read 20/40 with both eyes. But 20/20 is what we normally look at as being normal good vision. So with very good vision, you can read a 6-inch street sign from a distance of about 180 to 225 feet or 4 or 5 seconds. That's pretty good. But if your eyes are bad, the bare minimum the state requires, you would have to be half the distance. You got to drive up further to see the sign. Now you're only 2 or 3 seconds away, and you're not able to key on the signs as well, and you're probably going to end up taking the turn a little bit too fast. Now the next term is distance vision. If your distance vision is poor, you may not see hazards till it's too late to react safely. What would create problems could be whether your glasses are cleaned, maybe they have smudges, maybe the windshield, there's a film on the inside of your windshield, the outside may be dirty. Also, if you're going faster, you're more apt to make unreliable judgments pulling out into traffic or passing or lane changes, and it could be a bad result. I'm trying to read people are texting me on the screen here. Depth perception, I want you to write down. This is important with driving. So when are you going to use depth perception with driving? It's to judge the relative distance of objects correctly. That would be using your side mirrors, knowing when cars are coming up on the left or to the right of you, like for lane changes or passing. Following distance, okay, we talked about tonight being back 4 seconds. That has to do with depth perception, being able to look and know that you've got that time frame already in front of your vehicle when you're on the side of the road pulling out into traffic or really crossing traffic. And of course, stopping distance. And I think this is one of the main reasons why people don't stop at their stop line. They kind of overshoot, is because they don't have very good depth perception. We're going to have a whole thing on stopping next week. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of activities here. So we're going to kind of make it a little bit lighter here for a moment. That way we can all have a laugh and do things. So central vision is what we use to read a book. When you're looking at a book, you have to really stare at the middle of, use the middle portion of your eye to stare at the book, to pick up the letters, to form words, and to go along and have a basic understanding of what you're reading. So basically driving is the same thing, is that when you're looking down the road, you're pinpointing, like we said, the target that you're driving towards. But we get so tuned into that center portion, of our eyes, we tend to not see what's off to the sides. So and get a bigger picture of what is actually happening. So what I would like you to do, and you're going to do this on the YouTube comments here, is that I want you to write down what you see in the picture that I put up here in a moment. So I'm going to put a picture on the board for about let's say 3 seconds, and then I'm going to take it off, and you're going to have to tell me what you see. All right, so here we go. Get ready and write down what you see. You got to write down at least 3 things. All right, so write down 3 things that you see in this picture. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, write down what you saw in the picture. Okay, I think we've got just about everybody providing some type of a comment. So I'm pretty happy with what I see so far. But let me put the picture back up here. Okay, so a lot of people put down people. Okay, so we do have people. A lot of people put the lake. It could be an ocean, but it's a lake. Someone said an island. Some people, I'm trying to scan down here. Um, a tree. Good, good, good. Rocks. I see someone put down rocks. We do have rocks. Okay, so we've got 3 things that really stand out. Okay, wonder if I asked you, write down what is the biggest thing in the picture. What is the biggest thing in the picture? What I'm getting at, wonder if I told you that all these things are a weird tree. I like that. All these things you wrote down are correct because I told you to write down multiple things, but nobody wrote down exactly what the picture was drawn for. There is something that someone missed. And what you're missing is this is a picture of not a lake, of 2 people and a large tree. This is actually a picture of a baby. Look at the picture real carefully. This is a picture of a baby. Everything else is added around the baby. Okay, look up near the tree on the far right. That is where the legs and the foot of the baby is. If you go to the middle of the picture, up near the branches, those are the hands. You go to the far end of the tree, that is the forehead. And then the little branch, that's the eyebrow and the eye. Then there's a nose. That's a picture of a baby. And we have a class of over 20 people. There are over 20 people looking at this picture, and not a single one of you saw the baby. We only saw what we thought was the obvious. When you're driving, we tend to look only at our lane. We only look at a traffic light. We only look at maybe a speed limit sign. The thing is that when you're driving, there could be something that you're missing. So write down in your notes, when I'm driving, I am looking for the missing piece to the puzzle. What am I missing? And there's a term. Let me show you. I should have put this up before. What I want you to write down is just the top term, inattention blindness. Inattention blindness, all I want you to write down is failure by a person to notice something. You don't have to write stimulus. Is failure by a person to notice something that is in plain sight. That's all I want you to write down. Inattention blindness or change blindness, there are two terms. Change blindness and inattention blindness is where we don't notice something that's in plain sight. I'm not going to call anybody out on the carpet, but I will tell you that there's at least 2 to 3 of you that I have driven with so far that have missed stop signs, and I've had to use my instructor brake. The sign was always there. The stop line was in the road. For whatever reason, your eyes did not pick up the stop sign. And we would have gone right through if I didn't say something or use my brake. Because it's impossible for us to pay attention to everything, to see everything. And sometimes we think we're paying attention to the most important thing, like where we're going. But guess what? Sometimes it's not where you're going, it's where you should be stopping. So red lights and stop signs, you should never, ever, ever, ever not see. You should always see those. Now let me show you. I've got a couple clips here that when I saw this at a conference, I go, I am using this in driver's ed because it happens every day, every week that I drive with students that we're having problems picking things up. Why is it we're having a hard time seeing the obvious? Well, because we're human. We can't pick everything up. Okay, let's take a look at this first one.
The difference between these two men seems obvious. Their faces are different, their hair is different, even their shirts are a different color. And yet an experiment by psychologists Dan Simons and Chris Chabris at Harvard reveals that our brains actually process very little of what comes in through the eyes.
In this experiment, a subject comes up to a counter and a first experimenter hands them a consent form. As soon as they finish signing the consent form, they hand it back to the first experimenter, who then takes the consent form, ducks down behind the counter to put it away, and a different experimenter then stands up and hands the subject a packet of information and sends them into a hallway where we ask them questions about it.
This wonderful experiment uncovers an aspect of the brain's attention system known as change blindness.
Change blindness is the idea that we often miss large changes to our visual world from one view to the next. We're often not able to see large changes that would appear to be perfectly obvious to somebody who knows they're going to happen.
And incredibly, in 75% of cases, the subjects don't notice a thing.
The lady who took me up here, she opened the door for me and told me to walk over to the desk.
This form.
All right. I think there was a sign that said experiment. And a man there gave me a form to sign.
There was the guy standing under a big sign that said experiment. And to my left, there was like a pot with some dirt in it and some plastic containers. Is it the fifth?
Yeah, this one. We just
Oh, I filled out a form.
okay.
Right.
This form. How long would it be about before it's?
And I asked him how long it would take. He said about 10, 15 minutes or so.
I guess I have the time to do that.
Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
I just signed it, and I didn't even pay attention to anything that was written on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
After you handed it back to him, did you notice anything unusual happen at all?
If you could just take this into the next
No,
one.
no, I probably wasn't even looking that direction. I probably
Okay.
turned and looked towards the clear door. I saw some people there.
Okay.
Then I turned back and looked at him for a second.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
No.
This is only going to take 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be real short.
Okay.
The person who stood up was actually a different person.
Okay.
I gather you didn't notice that that was different?
No.
A different person actually stood up and handed you this form and sent you out toward me. I gather from Your reaction, you didn't notice that?
No.
Okay. Don't feel bad about that. Actually, most of the time, we find about 75% of people don't notice.
You serious?
Yeah. The person who stood up with the packet was actually a different person
Wow.
than the first person.
That is incredible.
So I gather you didn't see it then.
I didn't catch that, no.
Okay. What's really interesting is that some people notice these changes and other people don't notice these changes.
Okay, if you could just take this.
And we really don't yet have a good idea
Take that and go into
what separates those people who don't from those people who do. It might be that there are individual differences and some people are better able to detect these sorts of changes. But it's also possible that it's just coincidence, that the people who noticed it just happened to be focusing on a feature that changed. They just happened to be paying attention to the color of the person's shirt.
take this into the next room.
And the people who failed to notice it just happened to be paying attention to something.
Okay, so you get the whole idea that you have to be paying attention. So let's play a little bit of a game. Let's see how well you can pay attention to things that are changing, all right? So I'm going to show you this little video clip of a magic trick. Okay, it is your job to figure out what is different, what is changed, all right? So watch carefully.
Watch this next sequence carefully. At the end, I'll ask you a question about what you've seen.
Hi, I'm Magic Singh, and today we're in Portobello Road, and I'm going to show you guys a classic in magic, using matches. And today to help me out is Mark. Mark, tell you what, place your hand up for me nice and flat. Now, I promise this won't hurt, all right? So here's the idea. Let's just light this up, and if you close onto that nice and tight, here we go. Watch this.
Keep watching.
Don't know if you felt that or not. I'll tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up. See how the match is actually returned into the book, and it's still burnt. Okay, you're not impressed. All right, it was my first trick ever. But here's the idea. Just place that back in your hand, close it tight, and turn it face down again if you can. Now we're going to use one more thing, and we're going to use a magician's best friend, playing cards. Now the idea is really simple. You're going to choose one, so take any one you like. Perfect. Have a look for yourself, and do me a favor, show the camera as well if you can. Brilliant. And you know what? Place it back face up on the deck. Now, it doesn't matter if I see what the card is, because we're going to do something completely different. Just watch this. Here we go. I'll do it slowly. Watch the king. I don't know if you felt that or not. Tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up.
Oh,
Check it out.
it's the King of Diamonds. It's my card.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Did you watch the trick closely? This is a famous illusion called inattention blindness. This illusion is not about the magic. While watching the routine, you may or may not have noticed the changes taking place. The question is, how many changes did you see? Was there 1? Were there 3? Or were there 5? The answer is there were 3 changes. The first change was the red hanky to a green one. The second was his shirt swapping to a t-shirt. The last was his assistant becoming a completely different person. How many did you see? So why is it that you didn't see these big changes? And the reason is that the brain receives so much information on its eyes that you can't see everything simultaneously. So instead it picks and chooses according to what it thinks is important. If you change something that it doesn't think is important, you just literally don't see it.
Okay, so you can see inattention blindness and change blindness happens to everyone. I'm going to show you one last clip, and it kind of brings everything back together about why it's so important. And they do make a reference to driving and why we're having problems. Because think about this, distracted driving is inattention blindness or change blindness, because you're taking your focus away from the road, and then when you move your eyes back up after you've looked at the screen or after you've texted somebody, things have changed and you're not able to think about what has changed. You're still going on what you thought you saw last and not what is different, like maybe a traffic light or a position of a car or a person. So let's just take a look at this overview.
You are about to take part in a quick experiment. Take a look at this. Okay, now, did you happen to notice anything odd? Watch again. See any changes? Don't worry if you didn't see that it's two different men. It means your brain is doing exactly what it should be. It's focusing on the meaning of the scene rather than on the irrelevant details. Imagine how much energy and brain mass it would take for us to remember every single person, place, or thing we encountered. The things that matter, a conversation with a coworker, your child's first step, would be drowned by a deluge of information. So when there are minor changes to the world around us, we often don't pick up on them. There are two similar phenomena at work.
Inattentional blindness is the failure to notice something that's fully obvious right there in front of you when your attention is engaged on something or someone else. Change blindness is a failure to notice a difference between what's there right now and what was there a moment ago.
Scientists such as Daniel Simons from the University of Illinois have spent years devising experiments testing just how perceptive and unperceptive humans actually are.
So we feel like we're aware of everything, that we're taking in all of the details, and that if something important happens, we'll automatically notice it. It'll capture our attention. The reality is that we often don't notice unexpected things because we're aware of far less of our world than we think we are.
So how much or how little are we actually aware of? We decided to recreate one of Simon's most famous experiments to see for ourselves. Here's the setup.
Our senior series producer Vin poses as a lost pedestrian and asks a passerby for directions.
Excuse me? I'm looking for the skyline.
Then, we break the two up, walking through them holding a large sheet of wood. Now watch as I replace Vin. You might think people would notice the switch, but almost half the time, they didn't. Of course, that means more than half the time they did. We only tried the experiment 9 times, and by no means was it good science, but we were surprised 4 people didn't notice the switch. In Simon's original experiment, 7 out of 15 people didn't either. So what determines whether or not you can figure out the switch?
When you look at another person, you encode what's relevant for what you're doing right then, in that case, giving directions, and you don't pay attention to the details that are irrelevant, say what color their shirt is or exactly how tall they are. As long as you are able to make sense of the meaning of the scene and roughly the main categories of that person, say their height, their age, what race they are, what sex they are. As long as those important things don't change, the meaning of the scene really hasn't changed and you're not going to notice that anything's different.
Scientists have documented inattentional and change blindness since the 1970s, and while they allow you to focus your attention, this failure to see every detail can prove costly. Drivers often cause accidents because they overlook quick changes to their environments, such as pedestrians or cyclists. Faulty memories can wreak havoc during eyewitness testimony.
The goal of vision isn't to build a photograph or a complete model of the world in your mind. The goal of vision is to make sense of the meaning of the world around you. Being aware of our limitations can help us adapt and compensate for them, allowing us to do things that prevent the really negative consequences that can happen due to failures of awareness.
For example, Simons thinks that people might be willing to put away their cell phone when driving if they just understood the limits to their attention. Juries might realize that eyewitness testimony is far from ideal. And the next time you and a friend are fighting about the details of a past event, it's likely you're both wrong. Now that's something to remember.
So hopefully this will change your perception of driving, of what you need to be paying attention to. And these were some of the video clips. I didn't show you all of them, like I didn't show you this one. Let's go through a little bit more with some notes on vision. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to the section on turning, so we'll probably have to do that tomorrow before we get into signs and signals. So write down peripheral vision. We kind of covered this tonight. This is what you can see from the sides of your eyes. The thing I want you to write down with peripheral vision, and when I gave you the example when I was moving my fingers, if you look at the third bullet, it says it helps you detect moving objects and it helps you detect light or color. So in your notes, peripheral vision allows you to see movement. It allows you to see between light and dark and color. Okay, it doesn't give you detail. You cannot read a sign that's off to the right or left of you. You can only read a sign when it's in your central vision. For other types of vision or aspects of vision that we should be familiar with is people that are colorblind. It's a real thing. My son-in-law is colorblind. Blues and blacks and browns, purples. Who knows what color he thinks that they are, but he can't really tell. But you must be able to drive if you're colorblind. So how do they know it's a red light and not a green light? They know by the intensity of the light. They know that the top is red, they know the bottom is green, and they can tell which one is on. So they don't get a true representation of the color, they just know which one is on. So same thing with turn signals, hazard lights, backup lights, brake lights. They basically can tell by, and I don't think they have problems with like white and yellow and red, but I think it's the darker colors that most people have a hard time with. Night vision, the ability to see in low variable light conditions. I think your parents will probably admit that as they get older, they don't like driving at night, you know, so getting your night hours with parents can be pretty difficult. So as you get older, you don't see well, and you have to compensate by going slower, looking to the right edge of the road where the fog line is, or be careful about headlight glare at night. It will create those little splotches that you have in your eyes when you stare at a light too long, so look off to the right. Make sure that your headlights are clean, they're aiming correctly. Windshields should be washed outside and inside. And by the way, the inside of a windshield, even if you don't smoke, can get a little bit hazy. It's because of the plastic off the dashboard. Creates some type of chemical reaction to the window, and it kind of hazes over. So slow your speed. Glare vision, the ability to see when there is a rapid increase of light. So driving into the sun, so be very careful in the winter with the reflection off snow, and in the summertime it's water. And sunglasses are recommended when you come out to drive. I don't carry an extra pair, so you can use the sun visor if you want, but it's not as good as glasses. So everybody should invest in a pair of sunglasses and have them with them when they drive at all times. So let's talk about communication, and I only put up a couple slides here for communication. It's important when you're out on the roadway that, think about it, if it's a two-way roadway, you're going in one direction, they're coming towards you, we both have to know what the other person's doing. And we do that by speed, we do that by lane position, but a most obvious way is with our turn signals. And I would probably say half the people that are out on the roadway nowadays do not use their signals, or they don't use them correctly. So being in driver's ed, we're going to learn how to do things the correct and safe way. So what we're trying to make you into is to be a courteous and cooperative driver. Because when someone does something to help you out, you're pretty pleased by that. Well, guess what? When you do something to help somebody else, they're pleased with you. Now, we're going to have a section in driver's ed about road rage. Well, when someone doesn't communicate to you something and you don't communicate to them very well, then we've got a disagreement on the road. And that's when road rage starts, and when people start giving people the finger and beeping horns and screaming out windows and maybe getting out of cars. So we don't want that to happen. By communicating, we give other people the time needed to respond what is up ahead. And when you have time to respond, driving is quite pleasurable. It's not as stressful. When you have less time, you have more anxiety, you have more stress. This is why, have you ever seen your parents drive like in New York City? They know how to drive. But why is New York City or Boston? It's because it's too much input. There's too much to be paying attention to. It's being in an unfamiliar area. And when they can't figure things out, people get stressed. So traffic does create stress. So we want to reduce risk to us and to others. And on the flip side, if you don't communicate well or untimely, that shows a sense of aggression, being uncooperative, being competitive. Not very good aspects of being a safe driver. So we, just like we said, what we want, this is on the flip side, this is what we don't want. Decreased amount of time. It's hard to understand what other people are indicating for us to do. And this I like a lot. I'd write this one down. A lot of times when you don't have a lot of time, you're reacting rather than responding. Okay, you're reacting rather than responding. Most people would like to respond. Okay, I look at it as like a phone call is a reaction. The phone is ringing, you got to pick it up, you got to talk to the person. If someone texts you, you could get back to them whenever you want. It's just going to sit there. They're not waiting right at the text for you to respond, maybe. It's just to let you know, yes, I'm going to be downtown later today so we can meet up for a cup of coffee. So they don't need a response. They're just letting you know what's going to happen later in the day. A phone call telling you the same information, you want that person to pick up. There has to be, a back and forth. So how can we communicate better? Okay, let's kind of write these down. I think if you incorporate this in your driving, it's going to make you a better, safer driver. Headlights. I like them on all the time. If you've been driving with me, I ask you to put your lights on the day running lights because we want to be seen. It's not for us to be able to see the road in the middle of the day. It's for people to see us when they look in their mirrors. Always use your signals, okay? And try to use them at least 100 feet before you're going to make a turn in the city, about 500 feet on the highway. That translates to about a 4 to 5 second time before you're going to be turning. Before you get to that area, about 4 or 5 seconds, have that signal on. Brake lights, okay, write this down. If you apply early, they basically will understand what you're doing up ahead, whether you're turning or just slowing down for something in the roadway. Don't put brake lights on too hard. Well, you can't put them on hard, but you're using the brakes hard, but the lights come on. You don't want to use brakes too aggressively because people may not. And when brake lights come on, it only says that you've got your foot on the brake. It doesn't really tell people how hard the car is slowing down or how fast the car is slowing down. It's up to the driver behind you to read that by the movement of your vehicle. So just remember that. Brake lights really don't tell people this is a hard brake. I'm trying not to hit the car in front of me or a pedestrian, so I hope you brake hard too so you don't hit me. Brake lights just mean I've got a brake light on. Reverse lights, when we all know that there are white lights, will let people know that we're backing up. The horn, you want someone to turn their head to look at you, so make sure you can communicate with your horn. Hand signals on motorcycles, bikes, and even in a car. If you don't have functional directionals, you're going to have to stick your hand out the window and use hand signals. Lane position, we went over tonight. We talked about left of center for a left-hand turn, right of center for a right-hand turn. And then, of course, with speed, think about what you're doing up ahead, whether you're turning, whether you're parking, having the right type of speed for what you're doing. Turns, curves, hills, parking, I should have more up here, will basically indicate what is happening up ahead. Why people don't use turn signals? They forget. Oh, I should have a signal on. My philosophy, and I have this down at the bottom right here, think about this. It's better to have them on and not need them than to need them and not have them on. That's you'll probably hear me say that quite a bit. So why don't people use signals? They just plain forget. Oh, I really needed it for parking. Oh, I really needed it for backing. Oh, I needed it here. Oh, this is a turn. So just overuse your directional, but only for a short period of time. Don't keep them on. Some people are too late. They don't really give adequate time for people to respond to what you're indicating. This is a big one for some people, although in this class it hasn't been too bad. If I tell you to go left and you put your right signal on, you're communicating the wrong information. You need, because you're going to be a licensed driver, okay, you're going to be left all by yourself in a car at some point. No one's going to correct you anymore, whether it be your parents or me. You need to know left and right. You have to know which directional is making the car go or indicating which way your car is going to go. And this is the worst if you go in the wrong direction. If someone says turn right and you put your left directional on and you turn left, you've just gone in the wrong direction. Now, the interesting part about what I just said is the person in the car said turn right, you put your left directional and you turn left. Well, guess what? You just indicated what you did. You had your left signal on and you turned left. Everybody thought you were doing that except the person in the car giving directions. So that's not too bad. What is bad if someone says turn right, you put your right signal on and then you turn left? Because now the people around you, outside of you, don't realize why you just did that. You had the wrong signal on, going in the wrong direction. The person that gave you the direction is freaking out because you put on the wrong directional and going in the wrong direction. Okay, you have to nail this down for your driver's test. Can you fail for going the wrong direction? I guess it depends on how much you have taken them off their route and what kind of day that they're having. If you do something like that with me, I don't really care. I mean, I'll correct you and we'll kind of maybe have a laugh about it. Hopefully we won't have a crash or cause problems for other people on the roadway. But for the most part, you're here to learn. So we're going to learn from mistakes and we're going to kind of make somewhat light of them and say, man, you know, maybe I'll have to put an R on my right hand and an L on my left hand just so I can remind myself which way to go. I've had students do that. So we just can't make those kind of mistakes. That takes us to turning and passing and all that other stuff. I don't think I want to get into that right now. I want to speak on a few things coming up. So tomorrow is, I think, the biggest class that we're going to have, meaning the importance. Up to this point, we've talked about getting to know the vehicle, licensing, being a safe driver. Tonight it was about communication and about vision. Tomorrow is the hard facts on laws about traffic safety. So we're going to spend a lot of time on pavement markings, signs, traffic lights, making sense of where they're located, why they're there, how can we get a better grip of what to do in certain situations. So it's going to be a pretty long and intense class, and I haven't done turning yet. So I don't know if I'm going to do turning at the beginning of tomorrow or if I'll stick turning into a different date next week. But I do want you to read chapter 3 in the manual. I'm sorry, in the responsible driving, and then section 6 in the manual. We are going to have a quiz at some point online. It's not going to be where you go to your computer. It's going to be where you do it. I'm going to wait about 3 to 5 minutes for you to complete it, and then we're going to grade it and see how well you do. So signs, signals, pavement markings is big, big, big in driver's ed. So spend some time reading that tonight and going over that. So get chapter 6 and 7, which was due tonight. Do that with the remainder of time that you have tonight. I am going to try to send out in an email to all the people that gave me their email. I'll try to get that out tonight, if not maybe tomorrow morning, where you'll have free access to my calendar. So you will be able to see what I have scheduled up ahead. And if you would like to sign up for a drive time, you need to text me and I will confirm it, and then I'll put it in the calendar. And hopefully, if you ever forget when you're driving, you can just log on to the calendar link and see where you're driving, and you may not even have to text me. So please send me your email if you haven't done it already. Like I said, I have a lot of openings for Friday and Saturday. Tomorrow is booked. But let's get, for some of you, I see your names up here. I don't know who you are. So I think I saw you briefly when you picked up the material. But for the most part, you're going to be new to me. So let's start driving. Let's kind of get you behind the wheel. Because you know next week is midterm. We're halfway through after next week. So it is moving along quite quickly. All right, so that's it for tonight. I think I fixed the mic problem. I'm no longer using this. I know it's still up, but I'm only using this so I can hear me. It just helps me. So hopefully you still can hear through the, I'm going to point to the computer up here. So hopefully the mic up there is picking me up okay and everything is good. If you got any questions, feel free to text me tonight. In the next half hour, I'll be around on my phone and the computer doing a few things. But if not, please do your reading, send me your posters, do your radio ads. If you got next Tuesday to do a video, if you have a video. So that's it for tonight, and we will see you tomorrow at 7:30. So have a good night, and we will see you. Have a good one.